Before we dive into anything too deep, let me take you back to a room lit in purple, a warm July night, music playing, people swaying, and Prince, yeah, the real Prince, less than a foot in front of me, offering me a kielbasa. That night changed something in me, not just because I saw him in person, but because I saw who I was becoming. And it was the moment that planted the seed for this entire podcast series. I'm Chris Johnson, and you're listening to God is in the Groove. Episode 1 is called One Night in July. Let's begin. I remember that night like it was yesterday, July 26, 2014, at Paisley Park in Chanhassen, Minnesota. I was in the MPG Music Club room, which is this little lounge off to the side of the Love for One Another room, a big sound stage inside Paisley Park. Candace Springs was performing that night, a jazz pianist with a beautiful, soulful voice. And as she was playing, I looked to the side of the room and saw Prince just standing up against the wall, clapping and singing along with this huge smile on his face. At one point, he walked up to the stage, grabbed a kielbasa, a little handheld percussion instrument, and started playing along, jamming to Candace's rhythm. It was this joyful, spontaneous moment. He looked like he was so in the pocket, just vibing. And I remember watching him thinking, God, I wish he would come over here and interact with me. Now would be as good a moment as any. And just as that thought crossed my mind, I caught something out of the corner of my eye. Prince gliding across the room. And before I knew it, he was right in front of me, less than a foot away, holding out the kielbasa. Now at this time I didn't realize he was offering it to me as a memento. I thought he was just inviting me to join in, to play, to be a part of the music. And immediately I felt self-conscious because, well, my hands don't really work the way I want them to. My cerebral palsy makes holding or playing instruments really difficult. And the last thing I wanted in that moment was to look clumsy or awkward in front of Prince. So I didn't reach out. I didn't say anything. I just grinned, and Prince grinned back. My mind was racing. Should I say thank you? Should I shout over the music? Should I tell him what he means to me? There were 1,000 things I wanted to say. Thank you for the music. Thank you for the joy. Thank you for the example. But I said none of them. I just smiled. I glanced over at my sister Paula, who was with me that night. She was frozen, just like I was. And Prince caught me looking at her, and then he looked at her too, almost like, is she going to say something? Are you two okay? But she was in awe. Neither of us moved. After a few seconds, Prince gave a little shrug, one of those ah well gestures, and just floated away back across the room. A few minutes later, the kielbasa went to another fan. I know who she is. She still keeps it reverently, like a sacred object from that night. And for years I wrestled with guilt over that moment. I had a chance to say something to him, something meaningful, and I didn't. But I also didn't want to interrupt the music. I didn't want to scare him off. And honestly, I thought, there'll be another time. This isn't the last moment. There will be more. But as we all know, there wasn't. Prince died in the early morning hours of April 21st, 2016, and that was that. In the weeks and months that followed, I started thinking, what if I could have that conversation with Prince? Not in the traditional way, but in a way that still feels alive. Through something like this, a podcast series, a memoir, or a story told from the soul. That's what this is. God is in the groove is me finding a way to say what I didn't get to say that night. And it's more than that. It's about how Prince's music changed my life, how it guided me through grief, pain, and discovery, and how I've come to see my disability not as a curse but as a doorway to deeper understanding. I hope that in hearing my story, you feel inspired to share your own. Maybe you never met Prince. Maybe you did. Maybe his music found you at a time when you really needed it. If so, this podcast is for you. Thank you for listening. Welcome aboard. It's going to be a beautiful ride. And now, here to share her point of view on that special night is my sister Paula.
I have several really special moments in my life, memories that I cherish, but there's this one particular night at Paisley Park that I will never forget. Out of all the times I was lucky enough to see Prince on stage, at a concert, at a club, or even a restaurant in Minneapolis, there was this one night that stands above the rest, and it was inside the magic of Paisley Park. It was just a very intimate gathering at Paisley Park. You know, this is Prince's home. It's where people record. It's where he welcomes guests into his space, his personal space. And I love going there with my brother Chris. And at this particular time, we had a friend with us. And there was maybe 35 people at the most. There was no elevated stage in the smaller room. There was no barriers to the people who were playing. These were all new artists. And just the band was set up. We listened to some music, some musicians who were fantastic. And during one of the performances, my brother Chris and I, we just found ourselves like right in the front. I was sitting cross-legged on the floor. Chris was in his wheelchair, and my friend was knelt just behind me. And the energy was electric, but very peaceful at the same time. You could feel that there was something rare about to unfold. Prince wasn't front and center. He wasn't playing. He was enjoying the music just like we were. He was maybe 10 feet away on the side of the band, just directly in front of us. And he was playing various instruments for this person who was singing. He was grooving along, like enjoying the vibe. And he just was glowing. He was relaxed. He was happy. And it just felt like he was letting us in on something very personal, something he really found a lot of joy in, and that was helping these artists get their feet on the ground and get started. Then came the moment, and this is the moment that I enjoy thinking about, talking about, and dreaming about. But Prince walked towards us, holding an instrument called a kavasa, with a very funny, like playful expression on his face. He subtly lifted his eyebrows and he reached it out towards Chris, kind of like if he were asking, "Would you like to play this instrument?" And Chris politely shook his head, gesturing that it might be a little tricky for him to hold in his hands. And then Prince looked at me. He looked at me. And I froze. I just shook my head like I was stunned, and I was sitting there with my eyes huge, staring at him, you know, like, no, I can't play that. No way, I can't do it. I just can't do it. So looking back, you know, I laugh at how starstruck I was, but in that moment, I just wanted to soak it all in, enjoy it, and I didn't want anything to break that spell. But later that night, we were in the larger room, and there was a stage set up, and Prince was playing again for just these 35 people or so that were there. And he walked right past us when he went on his break. First, he passed Chris, and then he gave him this nod and this smile, kind of the smirk, that one that everyone knows. If you know Prince, then you knew that smirk. And he gave a little nod to me, and then he kept walking. Later, I find out he was riding his bicycle during his break out in the parking lot, and I thought that was pretty funny too. But it was such a simple gesture that night, but it meant so much to me. And it was like his way of saying, hello, welcome, welcome to my home. I'll never forget that night. And it's not because of the instrument that we didn't get to hold in our hands and the fact that I was starstruck and didn't know what to say. But it was just this memory, this moment where the music, the man, the magic of Paisley Park, it all came together. It's something that I will cherish for the rest of my life.
So that was it. My one moment with Prince. A moment I didn't quite know how to hold on to until now. It's taken me years to understand that silence can be sacred too. That sometimes a smile says more than 1,000 words. And what we don't get to say in the moment can still find a voice later when the time is right. This series, this is me finding that voice. And if you've ever had an experience with Prince's music or with your own pain, your own purpose that you've struggled to put into words, I hope you'll find some language for it here. Next time, we'll go back to the very beginning. I'll take you into the moment I first heard Prince's voice at age 3 on the radio. It was Little Red Corvette, and it was the start of something cosmic. Until then, thank you for listening. I'm glad you're here.